Today, guys, we are going to do some repairs on the Japa 405. I keep looking because we have a log truck that's due. I've been waiting all day for it to show up and it hasn't come. Every time I stop to do something, I hear a rumble and I take a look to see if the truck is coming. But here's the new screen. You can see how this has just gotten glazed over. I think what I'm going to do, once this is installed, I'm going to come up with like a flap that goes over this just to protect it from the sun. Maybe hold it up with magnets. So that'll be something I'll do here, not today, but that's on my list of things to do. I was told this is just plug and play. I just got to take it off the machine, unplug it, put the new one on. So what I have to do is remove this dashboard and expose the inside of the control panel. Here's something I also thought of, guys. I keep looking for the truck. They make this magnetic tray, and I live in fear of dropping stuff around here. If you've ever been out in the woods with your chainsaw, you drop one of those nuts and then you can't find them in all the sawdust. So using the magnetic thing, that helps. This is supposed to just come off, and the levers already have holes for them to come up through. And looky there, I have a wire on the back of the fuel gauge, and we'll unplug that, and it's off. Well, that was pretty easy. This is what I'm taking off, guys. There are 4 bolts on the back side of it, just little bitty ones, and I just have an 8mm socket, and I'm just going to break them loose and we'll take this screen off. This should go pretty quick. Famous last words, right? There's the second one is out, and now the third. They're not very tight. Number 3. And I think I got it, guys. There we go. So here, let's see, we have a tab. Oh, that was easy. All right. Can you see that, guys? And it's got a pretty busy plug on the back of it. And let's go ahead and plug this on. Boy, I hope this is all it needs to be done. Oh, that looks much better already though, doesn't it? So we can put these screws back in. This is going a lot easier than I thought. I remember I worked my way through college as a mechanic. And there was this guy I worked with. He was a good mechanic, but he sweat. He was the most sweatiest person I've ever met in my life. And I just mean, it could be December at the North Pole, and he would just be drenched in sweat. And the one thing I always noticed about him, when he worked on cars, he would make some of the ugliest faces. He would just contort his face like he was just under stress when he was working on the car. And he would just be off to the side, with this big scowl on his face, and he's just drenched in sweat. And I've just noticed, sometimes when you're just doing a real simple task like removing a little screw like this, next thing you know, your face is starting to hurt because you're making your face to tighten a bolt or something, and then you're just drenched in sweat. I haven't broke a sweat yet because thankfully it's pretty cold out right now, but Anyhow, just made me think of that. We're good. So I'm curious, let's see if this is going to work. So I'm just going to turn the key on. All right, we're golden, guys. Well, it looks like it's set up. The time's not right. I think I might have to redo that. We can reset everything here to zeros. I don't know. It changed the units, so I'm going to have to do some reconfiguring on the computer. I just think it's kind of funny that you have a Firewood processor and it's got a computer that you have to deal with. The pusher out has to be reset. It's put it at 0 and it has to be set at +4. Okay. The second thing that I have to fix is my oops. And I'll show you what happened here. I've already taken all this off for troubleshooting. But here we go. This is the oil tank and the oil line. This is the oil pump. This is coming from the tank. This line is going to the saw motor. I threw a chain the last time I was using this, and a log was being fed, and I didn't see it, but it had a branch on the back side of it. And when the saw cut, when it came back up, it hit that branch and it threw the chain off. Okay, that happens. However, the chain, can you see that, tore into the oil line. And this is that thick plastic tubing. And I just have learned from experience, this stuff is hard to mess with. It's just real stiff and it's hard to get these fittings to work right. I will show you where the leak is. I'm going to remove the adjuster from the oil pump, and this is how you prime it. You just push in on this plunger, but you'll see the oil coming out of here. You can see the oil in the tube, right? And it feeds all the way into the bar and chain. Well, here is the hole, and let me prime this and you'll see the oil come out of it. There you go. See it? Right there. So we're not getting any oil to the bar and chain, which is bad. And I didn't notice it right at first until, you know, there's no magic way, I guess, but you notice that the chain isn't dark and black anymore. It's kind of like powdery brown. And also that the chain had gone slack, probably from getting hot and expanding, or if these joints got abused, maybe. If you guys know the correct answer to that, let me know. But I've already loosened the nuts on this. What I was going to do is put in an entire new line, but you know, this has got one of these, well, they're called quick connect, guys. These are not called quick release because you can't get these to release. I remember doing the transmission lines on my one car, and they said it had those quick disconnect lines, and they're not quick disconnect. They are slow disconnect. These are quick connect. They go on real fast, but they don't come off. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to clean this off, and I am just going to wrap this with tape and just get this to close off. This is not high pressure, and this is a temporary fix. But guys, right now I need to make firewood, and I'm not going to let this slow me down. If it doesn't hold, then I'll replace this line. The problem too is this line is too short. It's been cut to length. And there's no wiggle room with this where I could just cut this off behind it and, you know, put the new end up in here. It will hit the saw. So I am stuck with having to just deal with this right now. If it doesn't work, at least we tried. Here we go. I think for a world-class machine, I don't know if I like the way that this saw, the chain and the bar is removed and tensioned. I mean, it's just standard stuff, but it's hard to do it from the other side because it's far back into the machine and that ledge is in the way. Well, then you can do it from this side, but the challenge here is you got to do it with your alternate hand. And that's not easy either. And the tensioner, I'll show you how the tensioner works and everything, but everything is just, it's just kind of hard to do. The first time I did this, guys, it literally took me a half hour to change the bar and chain. It wasn't that easy. And I have seen that they have since come out with those auto tensioning systems. I think that would be really slick. But you would think, you know, world-class machine, I think it should have it, huh? So I am going to be wrapping tape around this, and here you can see the hole, man. That's pretty big, huh? I don't know if this will hold at all, maybe. We'll have to see. But the chain really cut it back all the way this far. And I think it might have got into this one right here too, but definitely it took a big chunk out of here. But we'll give it a try. Like I said, it isn't high pressure. I think it'll work. And if it doesn't, well, now we know. The cure-all, right? What do you think? Here we go, guys. I got it taped off. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit the primer and let's see if it works. Oh, look at there, it does. Okay. Well, it works now, but how long will it work, right? We don't know that. Have you ever worked with this clear tubing before? I did once on a refrigerator, and oh my gosh. It's you'd think it's super easy to work with, and it isn't. These fittings and the tubing is just like hard as a rock, and you know, you try to figure out, like, you put it in hot water to get it to soften up, or I was using a heat gun, and it just, you try to shove in one of those barbs fittings, those T's. What a mess. So I just know when I saw that this was cut to length, I thought, oh gosh, I don't feel like messing with these fittings. And I also know I would be making probably 3 or 4 trips back to the hardware store because I wasn't getting the right fitting, the right thread, the right this, the right that. So in this case here, guys, electrical tape makes a lot of sense. I'm putting on the bar and chain now, and the very first time I put this on, I put it on backwards because I was just doing it from the wrong side. Everything was just backwards. And sure enough, I put the bar and chain on backwards. And I was thinking, why isn't this thing cutting? Here's the adjuster. It's a hex head, and it gets caked in with sawdust and oil, and you can't get your Allen wrench in there. It takes a number 4. So before I put the bar and chain on, I clean this out, and then that helps me with the tensioning. This is where I had put it on backwards, and I was getting ready to put it on backwards again, but I caught myself this time. So you get the chain in the slots of your bar. You get it hooked around the sprocket. And you get the tensioner in the hole of the bar, like that. Just like that. Next, you put your oiler on with your bolt. You hope that everything stays in alignment. And then you just start snugging these bolts up. You can't get them all the way in tight because you still have to tension it. So I'm going to get out my number 4 Allen wrench here once we get these snugged in a little bit more. You're probably wondering why I'm not using my ratchet. I don't know what it is with my ratchet. You know how, like, if you're ratcheting on a bolt that doesn't have a lot of tension to it, you can't get it to ratchet back. And that's the way these things are. And I can't do it left-handed and hold it with the other hand. It's just too tough for me. So I just grin and bear it with a wrench. And actually our tension looks pretty good, but I'll show you how the tensioner works. I'm going to come around to this side. I'll show you how the tension works. You just put your Allen wrench in there and snug it up. And we're pretty tight as it is. So I am going to go ahead and snug the bolts up. I'll just do it from this side. And I try to put back pressure on the bar when I'm tightening the nuts down. Just give them a pretty good snugging. Okay, that was actually a lot easier than I was expecting. I'm going to hit the primer. We are oiling. You can see the oil going down onto the sprocket. And I think we're good for the oil. I keep looking for the log truck and it is still not here. But this is the adjuster for the oil. And the farther down you run this, the less oil it gives. So I think that plunger hits the bottom of this set screw, and that's how it's adjusted. And I have to put the shroud back on. I remember when I bought the first Japa, the 365, you know, they just look complicated. And I remember Bob telling me, he says, if you have just basic mechanical skills, you can fix anything on this machine. And I have to agree with him. I find them easy to work on. I was getting ready to put this cover back on, but I thought, you know what, since we had the cover off, let's turn this thing on. Let's see what it looks like when it's running. I noticed right away, here's a sensor, and that is the pickup for the safety hood. So that's your safety switch there. This is the ram, and let's go ahead and run it out. All right. So here it is. And this is the cylinder for it. Go ahead and turn this off. Let's just take a look in here while we're in here, guys. So this is the ram, or the cylinder for the splitter. I see some nuts and bolts in there and a lot of fittings. Here's a sensor. This is probably the sensor to mark how far back the pusher comes. Well, the computer calls it a pusher. I call it a ram. And here's our main joystick control. So you see it has a bunch of, it's got 6 lines that go to it. We got some adjusters. I would have to have someone tell me what all these things do. Hydraulic line. This is to control the live deck. This lever controls the hold down, the log hold down. This dial controls how hard the bar comes down. So you can dial this down to make it come down real aggressive for maples, or you can dial it back so that it doesn't come down as aggressive for harder woods like ash. This lever controls this direction. It controls the conveyor, because the conveyor can slew. and then this way controls the knife. If you were using the traditional knife, it would raise or lower it. And this controls the speed of the conveyor, so I can speed it up or slow it down with this dial. But this looks pretty cool, guys. I've never been inside of this before. It's cool just to see all of the fittings. I have to connect the fuel gauge wire. That's just a little bitty wire, and it's in. And then we'll get all of the levers through their respective slots. And then from there, it's just a matter of putting all the bolts back in, guys. I guess it's inevitable for things to go wrong or to break. You know, you're dealing with these big heavy logs. They have mass to them. These machines are asked to do a lot, so it's inevitable. You throw a chain, you cut a line, you know, you blow a fitting, something goes wrong. But we take this time to get it fixed. This is later in the evening, and by tradition, I don't run my machine in the evening. Sometimes I do, but I normally run it in the mornings and it's done. I just do my stacking. I get my table loaded up again. Sometimes though, we'll run it twice in a day, and you know, we'll be out here running it. This time of day, I cleaned up a little bit. I cleaned up from underneath the cleaner, and I just had to get that oil line fixed, and I'm going to keep my eye on that, and we'll see how that thing lasts. I hope it lasts for a pretty good time. There was this other YouTube channel that I used to watch. He would teach you how to be more productive as in a factory setting. We're hardly a factory here, but you know, the elements of a factory are certainly here. And what their practices are, in an 8-hour workday, they just wouldn't produce for 8 hours and go home. They would produce for 6 hours, and then they committed the final 2 hours of their day to machine maintenance, shop upkeep, cleaning, you know, maintaining all of their tools, all their machines. And that has always been in the back of my head, because you know, it's easy to let things go. You know, for instance, that oil line, you know, I'm making a quick fix on that just so I can keep my production up. It seems that here we have that extra dynamic of the weather, and I have just the master plan that I want to do for the week, and then the weather doesn't cooperate. We've had like 9 straight days of rain. It's just been a really wet stretch, and I haven't been able to make as much as I want to. The last thing I'm going to do, these bolts, I've noticed they tend to back out, so I'm just going to make sure that they're tight. They've had Loctite on them, but they still back off a little bit, and they aren't that loose. This one was a little bit, but at least we got them tight. And that is it from the wood yard and Joe's repair shop. Joe's Firewood Processor Repair. And the lock truck still hasn't showed up. If this is not an example of why I don't have local pickup for deliveries, you know, you sit around, you wait all day, you change your schedule, and then they never show up to pick up their firewood. And that's why I like delivery. Don't have to worry about that. I can control the schedule, but I uphold my side of the bargain. When I say I'm going to be there, I will be there. And if I can't, I mean, what the heck? You just send a text or you make a phone call, right? And don't forget, guys, Friday, October 7th at 9 a.m., All Roads Lead to Ohio 2.0, the live stream. Tune in, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some other YouTube channels here. We're going to have a celebration of firewood. And, of course, we will have some giveaways. I hope to see everyone on the live stream on Friday, October the 7th, 9 a.m. Also, too, I will be making an appearance at the Paul Bunyan Show in Cambridge, Ohio. That will be on Saturday, the 8th, at 11 till 1 o'clock at the Japa tent. If you guys can make it to the Paul Bunyan Show, I hope to see you there as well. And that is all from the Woodyard, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope that everyone has a great day.